Welcome to the Win, Make, Give podcast. This is Ben Kinney, joined today with Chad Himes and Bob Stewart.
Hello.
I see a hand up. Am I supposed to say something or stop? I'm not sure what that signal is.
Just say hi, Bob.
Hi, everybody.
Ladies and gentlemen, today we're going to tell you a story. It's a story of success. It's a story of failure. It's a story starting off with two main characters named Maurice and Richard. And when you say the word Maurice, what do you think of, Chad?
Steve Miller Band.
Maurice. What's the sound? Something roughly interpreted. But this happened a long time ago. I mean, a really, really long time ago. These two brothers, Maurice and Richard, were born in New Hampshire. And growing up, they got to witness their father work his whole life, 42 years for the same company. That company happened to be the New Hampshire Shoe Factory. After 42 years of hard work and dedication and commitment, his job ended. He didn't get a high five. He didn't get a pension. He didn't get a check. He didn't even get a fancy watch. In fact, not even a thank you. These boys, that's not going to be me. They were burnt by the idea that a company could do that to somebody who was so loyal for so long that these gentlemen decided that they were going to go off and become entrepreneurs. In fact, they made a commitment to each other that they would both become millionaires by the time they reached 50. And as you hear the story, they actually almost made it. Now, these gentlemen did what any entrepreneurial future millionaire would do who was born in New Hampshire. They packed up their stuff as soon as they graduated high school and they moved across the United States into California. And like so many business stories that we hear, there was failure after failure after failure. Maurice and Richard eventually became known, went by the names Mac and Dick. And their first job in Southern California was working on film sets, studios. They'd move things around, fix stuff, do whatever they needed. They had a job, but that isn't why they went to California. They went to California to own a business. The first business that they owned was a movie theater. And they had the benefit and the amazing timing, Bob, of opening their movie theater in 1930, which right in the middle of what?
The Depression.
The Great Depression.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, I know you're broke, but come watch a movie. It's only a nickel. It was a struggle.
Yeah.
And they didn't succeed. They eventually sold it, and they decided to move into a different industry. They always dreamed of being in the restaurant or food services. So in 1937 in Monrovia, California, Mac and Dick opened the Air Dome. That sounds cool. We need like a monster truck rally announcement name for the Air Dome. At the Air Dome, they served 10-cent hamburgers and 10-cent hot dogs. And they had all-you-can-eat juice for a nickel. Now, this business did okay. However, it wasn't going to get them rich, Bob. They weren't going to become millionaires, Chad. So they had to make a change. In 1940, 3 or 4 years later, they grabbed the building, like physically, they moved the entire hot dog stand, right, 40 miles east to a bigger city, which is San Bernardino, Southern California. And they opened a barbecue restaurant. That restaurant served what you expect a barbecue restaurant to serve, ribs.
Yeah.
And the ribs were good, right? Fried chicken, hamburgers, hot dogs. They had a variety of items on their menu. And they had lots of customers. But they still weren't making any money. They decided that something had to change. Well, change requires a lot of things, but one of them is risk. They had to take a risk. I find this quite astounding that these gentlemen who were not wealthy decided during this time to shut their business down for over 3 months, to entirely reinvent themselves, overhaul the business, the menu, and the model into what they would call one of the first self-service restaurants, where they were no longer using, I imagine, these pretty girls on roller skates, skating out there, balancing a milkshake and some fried chicken and ribs and sitting it on the side of my 40s Ford, right? Convertible though, Bob.
Fairlane or something.
Yeah, something fancy. It would have been awesome, right? They got rid of all those. They got rid of the silverware, the plates, all the things that the waitresses and waiters would drop and break all the time. And they got rid of the dishwashers, because the dishwashers, they said, had a tendency to show up drunk all the time.
This sounds a lot like your house. Got rid of the silverware, got rid of the plates.
It is actually quite an intelligent decision. You got to learn from the past, Chad. What they did was really a reinvention. In order to complete this reinvention, they went out to a tennis court behind their home, and they took chunks of chalk and they drew out the floor plan of their restaurant. And like Henry Ford did with the automobile creation, they decided to automate the process of making food in their restaurant. They would change where the oven was and the refrigerators and the prep kitchens and where people ordered, and they would customize it to solve a problem. They believed that the problem with restaurants today was that when you needed something, you had to wait 20 minutes. And that eliminated a massive amount of customers. They wanted to change from it taking 20 minutes to get their meal to just 30 seconds. In order to do that, not only did they have to reinvent the physical space, they had to reinvent their menu. They went from having over 25 items down to just 9. Reminds me a lot of the story of Steve Jobs when he took over the position and went back to Apple. They had over 300 and something different SKUs, and he dumbed it all the way down, I think to 9 or 10 items. Pretty funny, right? Well, these gentlemen asked themselves the question, what did they actually sell? They have 25 items, but what they found was that 80% of their sales were hamburgers. So they decided to reinvent their business around selling hamburgers, cheeseburgers, 3 types of soft drinks, all in one size, milk, coffee, potato chips, and thank you, Mother Jesus, pie, ladies and gentlemen. They served pie. They came up with a concept called the Speedy service system. It was based on doing things fast, affordably, efficiently, and in massive volume. Kind of automating the whole restaurant experience and the whole cooking experience. They narrowed their crew down to just 12 people. This allowed them to cook things quickly, minimize expenses, and serve a simple item on their menu, the hamburger. It was served with ketchup, mustard, onions, and Bob and Chad, how many pickles?
2.
2, not 3, ladies and gentlemen, not 1, but literally 2. And they were successful.
Same ingredients today, by the way. The hamburger, all the way, cheeseburger, all the way later. Crazy, right? It's never added an extra pickle or onion.
80 plus years later, right?
Yeah.
Well, as they figured all these things out, they got up to launch date. And you're not going to believe this. The day that they were supposed to open, there was a freak storm in Southern California that dumped 3 inches of snow. Like, what are the odds, right? It was so bad, they had all the employees park their cars in front of the restaurant so it looked busy for their opening. Within days, I think they questioned whether they would even go on if they had made a mistake. But over time, people caught on to this idea that the limited menu, speed, right, simplicity, getting out of your car, that this was maybe the future. They were successful because students, business travelers, families traveling, people working long hours, they understood the benefit of fast food. Maybe there's some downsides today, but back then, over time, they modified their menu. They swapped out the apple pie for milkshakes and French fries. And they sat back and high-fived each other because they were on the path of being successful. At some point, every business looks up and says, if I'm doing this good here, what would happen if I did this here, there, and there? We would call that expansion. In 1952, the McDonald brothers, they decided to franchise their model. They met with an architect. His name was Stanley Meston. And they had him design the future McDonald's restaurant using the things they learned in their own kitchen and some cool branding things that the brothers thought up, like the golden arches. By the way, the architect hated that idea and he refused to tell other people that he had designed it. The architect made another funny little mistake. He was offered a one-time fee up front, Chad, or a check commission every time a new restaurant was built. Oh. He took the easy way and I'll take the fee up front. I bet you that person might regret that one today. Well, expansion is challenging for every business. Their first location sold was in Phoenix, Arizona. The second one was in Downey, California. In fact, interesting piece of information, Bob, that location actually still stands today as the oldest original McDonald's restaurant outside of what the brothers created. We'll talk about that one a little later. But it didn't succeed. See, what happened was these individuals bought a model, and like my friend Chris Suarez says, they tried to take the model and turn it into a menu. They bought this idea and this concept, but when the McDonald's brothers went and visited them, they were selling burritos at one of the locations, fried chicken at one of the locations. They had changed what had worked, and it no longer worked. They were not successful. In fact, those original franchisees blamed the McDonald brothers for selling them a bunch of garp. Well, struggling with expansion, they ran into somebody else. I think they had kind of thrown in the towel and decided that enough is enough. You probably know who I'm talking about today, Mr. Ray Kroc. What you may not know about Ray is he has an interesting history himself. At age 15, Ray went off and joined the Red Cross ambulance service because he wanted to be on the front lines of World War I. He was sent off for training where he got to train with Walt Disney. Pretty interesting that those two individuals ended up in the same class. But he never got to go overseas because the war ended before that. Throughout the 20s and 30s, Ray had a variety of jobs. He was a pianist. He had the lowly, miserable job of being a real estate salesperson. He sold paper cups to businesses, restaurants for a long time until he ran into an opportunity. And that opportunity was to become the exclusive distributor of the multi-mixer.
Now that needs a better voice when you do that. Come on.
The exclusive! Something like that.
Yeah, definitely when you get to the multi-mixer part.
Well, what's a multi-mixer? It makes milkshakes, but not just one milkshake. It makes
Five
at a time. Well, here's a lesson in business. One day, Ray gets a phone call, let's pretend, from his staff or whoever it was, right? Saying, hey, there's an order, but it's just in place for a single restaurant needs 8 of these. And instead of saying, I just made a bunch of money today, count that commission, Ray looked up and said, what in the hell is a restaurant gonna need to make 40 milkshakes at a time? What kind of a restaurant is that? And instead of just being curious and counting his commissions, right, he jumped in a vehicle, plane, he walked, He went from Chicago all the way to Southern California to figure out why the McDonald's brothers would need 8 multi-mixers. When he visited the very first McDonald's, he was blown away. The simplicity, the change in the model, the simple menu, the pricing, and the ability to get things done in 20 or 30 seconds. That's pretty crazy. But Ray saw something that the other brothers maybe didn't. He saw an opportunity that he could lead. He knew that if he was given this opportunity, he could turn McDonald's into something nationwide or international. Ray negotiated the exclusive rights to sell and manage franchises for McDonald's across the U.S. or the world. And that was in 1955, Chad. By 1959, Ray had opened restaurant number 100.
That's impressive.
But the McDonald's brothers and Ray were still not making any money. Isn't it amazing that you could have a really great idea, a really great model, and still not make any money from it?
Someone's doing something in the wrong way.
It could be like half of the tech companies today, maybe. It needed a tweak. Mm-hmm. Well, the brothers got into business with Ray, and I think in the beginning, they must have all been optimistic. They must have looked at each other and said, yeah, let's go do this. We believe in you. I believe in you, that kind of stuff. But resentment started to build. And we know resentment becomes a wedge, and if that wedge gets too deep in there, it'll explode. They fought over the menu and the decor and the signage and the locations and the speed of growth. And eventually that became such an issue that Ray set off to a plan to part ways with the McDonald's brothers. During that journey, Ray had hired another important person to the business. Do you know who that was, Bob?
Harry Sonneborn?
Yeah.
Go, Bob.
Harry was McDonald's Corporation's first president. And he made one recommendation that changed the future of McDonald's. He said that McDonald's Corp should own the land of which the restaurants sit on, and they should lease that land back to the franchise owners. Because of him doing this simple thing, he ended up with basically complete control of McDonald's and forced the McDonald brothers to sell for $2.7 million. Now, why was that number important, Bob?
Well, so that would have been $1 million to each brother, which fulfilled their goal from when they set out and headed west, right? They wanted to make $1 million, and then $700,000 to cover the taxes.
So they become millionaires in their early 50s. They didn't quite make the 50 mark, but in their early 50s, they each walked away with $1 million each, which in today's money is still a massive amount of money, but nowhere close to what it would have been worth if they would have found a way to work together still today. It'd be billions and billions and billions of dollars, right, Bob?
The fascinating thing about Sonneborn and that suggestion, there's a couple things. They weren't making any money, right, Ben? And so, but the McDonald brothers had locked in the percentage they were allowed to charge franchisees. It was like 1.9% of sales or something. And they weren't making money on that, right? So they were looking for another way to make money. But Sonneborn's idea that they become like a landlord essentially also solved another problem they had in the business, which was the amount of capital somebody needed to become a franchise owner was almost entirely wrapped up in the building of the location, the physical location. And so now McDonald's could go to the bank, they could get loans for these things, right? And then the tenant would pay that loan off over the course of their lease. I mean, it was just a fascinating way that they took a weakness in their business model and turned it into a strength.
They had a guaranteed tenant.
Yeah.
They knew exactly what the rent would be. And if the tenant tried to back out, they actually inherited the business, which is the franchise, which is McDonald's, which just made them more and more money on top of it.
And they did the rent as a percentage of sales as well, right? So if you got a franchise location in LA or New York City or whatever, and you had tons of people coming in, you were going to pay more rent than somebody that got a franchise location in Kansas City.
Yeah, it's called a gross rent, actually. Now, they did a lot of things during their time, and the brothers did. Maurice, right, and Richard, they made a lot of smart decisions. And so did Ray. Now, Ray, I think, can be known, if you research them, like so many other leaders, very successful, very smart, very cunning, and also very ruthless. So we can put them on a pedestal for success, but you also have to look at people for how they treated people and what happened. And the stories go on either side of that. But I think the best way to kind of sum up Ray's competitiveness was a simple quote that he said. He said, "If any of my competitors were drowning, I'd stick a hose in their mouth."
That's ruthless.
That is ruthless. Yeah.
mean,
Sorry, I can't hear you. My foot is on your head.
And so right after he buys the brothers out, within 6 months, he goes back to San Bernardino and he allows them to keep their one store
Under a different name.
Yeah, they have to. So they changed the name to the Big Mac or the
Big M or something like that.
Big M,
Yeah.
right? So then he goes back, buys the plot of land across the street, and puts a McDonald's franchise right across the street from him, and essentially drives them out of business in the next year.
With their own business.
Yeah. He was a ruthless competitor.
That's a hose down your throat.
Yeah, that is. That is. Now, before we kind of go on, we have some other things we want to share with you. Chad, what are some takeaways from the original McDonald's brothers? Like, what did they figure out that was so important to their success?
Efficiency, right? I mean, they were so efficient, and that's been something that's been driving me crazy lately on how inefficient so many of us are with things. These guys took the time in advance and built out the floor plan of exactly where things needed to go so people didn't have to move very far. I could go to my left, I could go to my right, and I could deliver the hamburgers to the counter from the grill or whatever it was. They were so efficient and built such a system that would get food to you in 30 seconds.
And who did that benefit?
Everybody, right? The employees were efficient. They didn't have to think about it. They knew their job was A to B, whatever it was. The customer waiting on the other end of it who wanted efficiency. That was one of the things McDonald's was selling as its value. So there it was for them. And of course, them as a company, because they could, and if you've ever worked in the restaurant industry, you know one of the things you're always working on is turn time. How quickly can you get the people out of the table and get the next group into the table? And McDonald's created the ultimate turn time. Seconds, not minutes.
They focused on creating an efficient and profitable business that they knew would be successful because they cared about the customer experience. Fast, simple, quality. McDonald's may not have the best cheeseburger in the world, but no matter where you go anywhere, if you order a Big Mac, right, or you order a regular cheeseburger, you know what it's going to be like. It's the most consistent cheeseburger in the world. No matter where you go, in what country or what language the menu is in, you're going to get a cheeseburger with 2 pickles.
How many times have you gone to a restaurant and you look at the menu and you say, oh, that sounds good, except can I have it with this or that instead and all that? McDonald's didn't give you the choice. They took that choice away from you and they said, you can have a hamburger, but this is how the hamburger is being served. You have to go out of your way to request, I don't want ketchup on it, or I don't want the pickles, and then you have to wait.
You had to wait. Yeah,
then
if
it's
you
like,
made a
okay,
special order,
you're penalized. Go stand in the corner until we get it to you. You'll have to wait. So we accepted it.
What'd you take from the story?
I think one of the things I took away was they looked outside of their industry, right? They modeled the way that they were going to build their restaurant and have this kind of assembly line production off of Henry Ford, who was doing it in the automotive industry. So they weren't bound by what people were already doing in real estate. I mean, they literally manufactured the concept of fast food, and they did it by looking somewhere else to get the idea for assembly line production.
I did a lot of research. At first, I stumbled across one of my favorite movies, The Founder.
Yep.
Which kind of tells this story Hollywoodized, right? And it led me down this bunny trail of studying McDonald's brothers and Ray Kroc. And I read articles from the Smithsonian Magazine. They wrote a great one called The Story of How McDonald's Got Its Start. And History.com had one, How McDonald's Became a Food Giant. And I watched speeches from Ray Kroc and read stories. And it was interesting. We have to be careful not to put people on pedestals for every area of their life. Ray was married multiple times, right? Probably wouldn't be our marriage coach.
No.
Right? He was a ruthless competitor. There's areas that you would say, hey, I want to recruit this guy on my team because I wouldn't want to compete against him. And there's other areas you probably wouldn't want him on, like maybe as a partner.
Which comes to your old, the seesaw that we're putting together, that love and respect and results that we've got there. Would Ray actually be somebody that would be on your team? What was your big takeaway, though, from all the research you've done and taking us through the story of this? What was your biggest takeaway of the McDonald brothers themselves?
That they were willing to risk it all, to change what they're doing, to reinvent, and to put things on hold in order to get to their future.
So you're talking about when they had something that was good, and then they shut it down for months to redesign it to come out with great.
Think of the different things they tried and failed. The movie theater, the hot dog stand, the drive-in restaurant, the McDonald's, the franchising. Like the vast majority of the things that these boys attempted failed, or they at least didn't succeed. Yet they kept going until they found something that worked. And they were very focused on continuous improvement, but they weren't focused on growth, which to me means you could have a really, really great idea, a really, really great product, a really, really great service. But if you don't have somebody growing it, you're not going to win. Now, the McDonald's brothers might have been screwed out of their company, or they may have not had $1 million company if it wasn't for Ray Kroc. I don't know. That's a weird situation to be in. Ray Kroc said some pretty powerful quotes, Bob. Let's walk through a few of them that you and I found.
I like luck is a dividend of sweat. The more you sweat, the luckier you get. That's a great one.
Luck is a dividend of sweat. The more you sweat, the luckier you get. That is so powerful. I think people look up all the time and say, that guy's just lucky. That lady's just lucky. No, that person put in the hours so they appear lucky. What else has he said, Chad?
I like, and we've talked about this a minute, you're only as good as the people you hire.
That's so good. Adversity can strengthen you if you have the will to grind it out. Yeah, well, we learn from tough times if we grind it out. If we don't grind it out, all we actually learn is how to quit. What else we got?
There's this one here. I think it's a great one. I'd love for you to talk about it, Ben. It's in business for yourself, not by yourself.
I think one of my mentors said, one of the hardest things you'll ever do is be fair to yourself while still trying to be fair to others. I think that's a powerful statement. How do you make sure that you're still moving forward with your goals, but realize that people don't succeed alone? That most of us are going to succeed because of the team we build around us, which goes back to the quote you already mentioned, you're only as good as the people you hire. One of my favorites is, if you have time to lean, you have time to clean.
Sounds like something my dad probably said.
So like if I'm sitting around the restaurant and I'm leaning up against, if I have time to lean up against the
you have time to clean.
cash register, I have time to clean the bathroom.
What I think about that is if you're at work, work. If you're not at work, don't work. But if you're going to be here, work while you're here.
Yeah.
I always have a problem with when employees or something say, I've been working really, really hard. I say, I appreciate that. Have you been working extra hours? No, but it's been really tough. So you've been working the same amount of hours. You've just been working harder than normal. Like, that's a weird thing for me, right? You want me to feel sorry for you? Yes, we're all working hard. Right? The same freaking 40 hours.
Working hard,
yeah, what were you doing before? Unbelievable. Now, if you're to think about success, everybody has big successes and small successes and big failures and small failures. And one of the last things we want to leave you with are some of the failures that McDonald's has had on their menu. But before we get there, I want to remind you of some of the successes they had on their menu.
Oh, here we go.
Are you guys ready?
Here we go. I'm ready.
Big Mac McDLT, a quarter pounder with some cheese, a filet of fish, a hamburger, a cheeseburger, a side of fries, a Happy Meal, a Coke, a burger, and a shake. ... What do you guys think? Those are wins.
That's impressive.
That's impressive.
All of those are wins, by the way. Still on the menu.
Interesting, though, Ben. I did some research on the biggest failures of McDonald's, and the McDLT makes the list of biggest failures McDonald's ever came up with.
Wait, was that in your song?
It wasn't his song.
Big Mac McDLT, a quarter pounder with some cheese. And the McDLT failed for one reason. They wanted you to build it yourself.
The hot side was hot, and the cold side was cold.
Yeah, they wanted you to build it yourself, but they had double the amount of styrofoam,
right.
double the amount of trash, and double the amount of space. It was still a good burger.
And all you had to do was just...
They had way worse failures than that, Chad. Give us one of them.
They sure did. Now, here's the thing. I'm going to play a game with you guys because I know you guys don't know this list yet. All right, so I'm going to give you a product, and you tell me, was it truly a McDonald's product or not?
Okay.
Okay, so I'm going to give you some interesting ones. I'm going to give you an easy one to start. The McHotdog. Was it a product at McDonald's, Bob?
I mean,
yes
I
or
feel
no?
like at some point, if the McDonald's brothers originally were hot dog guys, they had a hot dog stand. I'm going to say yes. They
Ben?
had a McHot
Nobody
dog.
wants a McWiener.
True. Yet it was obviously, Bob. I gave
It
you
was?
that one. It was. There was the McHotdog. How could the guys with a hot dog stand not at one point
Right.
have the McHotdog? All right. Was it or was it not the McPizza? Ben, we'll go to you first. Was there a McPizza?
Well, this is unfair because I know the answer. Because I read about this one time, and they said the problem with the McPizza wasn't that it wasn't good. It took too long to cook. It was no longer fast food.
There you go.
So you could have something really good in your business, Chad, and it still not be successful because it's not right for your business. People coming through the drive-thru do not want to wait for 10 minutes for a pizza to come out.
All
So
right, Bob.
I kind of cheated on that one. Sorry.
Is he giving you the truth, though?
Oh.
Is the McPizza, or did Ben just give you a really good...
Hold on. You're saying Ben can throw me curveballs?
He might have thrown you a curveball there. Is the McPizza
Now we're
a
playing
failed product or not?
trust
we're
him.
playing the McBullshit.
I trust my buddy Ben. I'm going to say it was.
It was. It was their number one failure on the list of failures. All right. Next, is it or is it not a product? The McCrab. Bob? The McCrab.
What?
I'm going to tell you they had a crab sandwich, a McCrab.
I'm not buying it.
No, you're not buying that one. Ben, McCrab? Yes or no?
I'm not. That'd be too expensive for fast food.
The McCrab was a failure made from the popularity of crab cakes in Delaware and completely failed as well because it did not work outside of the local area at all.
Interesting.
Yes. All right. How about, Ben, the McHula burger? Was there something called the McHula burger?
I mean, maybe in Hawaii, but what would have been on it?
All right, so here's the deal. I actually know. So I have a cheat on this one. So I listened. There's another. There's a podcast out there. It's worth listening. It's called Business Wars. And there's a McDonald's versus Burger King in there. And so if I remember the story right on the hula burger, it was actually one of the first menu items they introduced. And they introduced it maybe around the same time they introduced the filet of fish. And it was introduced to get Catholics to come into the restaurants on Fridays when they weren't allowed to eat meat.
During Lent. Very
Right?
good,
And so
Bob.
the McHula burger, I think it had no meat. It was like
No meat.
cheese on a pineapple slice, right?
Bob running away with the McHula burger
Yeah,
information.
But it failed. It failed.
It did
The
fail.
fish sandwich that they put on at the same time became something that I think today is still on their menu, right? Fish is good. It's on the 99-cent filet of fish.
Filet of fish, yes. Yeah. Sure you do. All right. Yes, true or false, was this a McDonald's product? Onion nuggets. I know your kids love the chicken nuggets, Bob. Did they ever have onion nuggets?
I'm going to say yes. Here's why I'm going to say yes. Because over the years, McDonald's has ripped off things that work at other places. And
Like
tried
the
to introduce
Bloomin'
them,
Onion?
Like the Bloomin' Onion, yeah.
That was so good.
So I don't know. I'd say yeah, but not because I've ever heard of it.
All right, Ben, are onion nuggets a real thing?
It doesn't sound good, but I think I have to go with Bob on that one.
You're right. It was to compete with onion rings.
Okay.
They did have these. Yes. All right, here we go. McWings. Did they ever have McWings, Ben?
I don't know. I'd never had one.
The only reason I'll say, here's why I'd say yes on that. I feel like they could cook them fast. I feel like you could drop a wing into a fryer pretty darn fast.
Well, Kentucky Fried Chicken figured it out.
Yeah. I say yeah, they tried the wing. Again, they're ripoff artists, right? So they were trying to put something on the menu to steal a few KFC fans.
There you go. We've got McWings. Are you noticing a trend here? All these things I'm giving you so far actually at one point were.
So you're basically giving it away?
I'm giving you two more.
Do you know the worst named food item ever to be put on the McDonald's menu?
No.
The McStuffins.
Which was next on our list, Ben Kinney.
the McStuffins.
Next, Chad?
I was going to ask you if there was something called the McStuffin, which is actually to compete with the Hot Pocket craze.
Oh, McStuffin.
They had a McStuffin.
What would that even be? Okay, a hot pocket.
I will tell you right here, Bob. It was to compete with it. The grab and go food. You remember the Hot Pockets? They attempted their own and stuffed it in 4 different flavors. All right. Here we go. Next on the list. True or false? Was it a product? The McTaco.
I mean, okay, I'm going to say no, only because at some point, aren't you going to give us one that wasn't? Are you going to make one up?
They've made a lot
I
of
say
products.
no.
You're saying no?
I'm going to say no.
You're going to say no as well? All right, there was no McTaco. They have not yet gone with a taco. And our last one, did they ever provide Mac Spaghetti? Did McDonald's ever do mixed spaghetti?
Yeah, yep.
I'm going to say no because just mixed spaghetti doesn't roll off the tongue very well.
And I will tell you that, yes, for a while, McDonald's in the late 70s attempted spaghetti.
Get out of here.
So
And basically, they've attempted everything at one point or another and let the audience decide, did it work?
yeah, they had the salad shakers.
Yeah. Oh, about the salad, just so you know, folks, now let's be clear. I know I'm the guy who talks health, and we're talking McDonald's here. There's very little healthy to say about it. Yet if you're stuck at a McDonald's, take the burger over the salad. There's actually less fat in the burger than the salads at McDonald's.
I'm making the right choice unintentionally. That's
That's my takeaway for McDonald's.
If I
for all of
got, what do they call the salad things? I just said
the
it.
McShakers that they
The
had that you
salad
put in the
shakers.
cup and you
Yeah.
shook it up yourself. Like
I'd probably get sick and
the
end up
shake
a
weight.
salad shooter. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you laughed and learned and you've thought, how can I turn my business a little bit closer, a little bit more efficient, a little bit more automated so it has the real ability to scale, to grow. We learn how to help ourselves by studying what others have done. I hope you enjoyed getting to know the McDonald brothers and Ray Kroc and the story of McDonald's. If you ever see me and I have a bag of McDonald's or a McDonald's cup in my car, give me a hug. I only go there when I'm extremely depressed.
Okay, folks, and if you're eating at McDonald's, please remember, wash those hands. And as always, do good.